All right, gas fees are too damn high. No matter what chain you use, gas fees will always increase unless there's control systems to suppress them. And that is because transactions will always increase in count, and the price of the token, if it increases, also increases the price of transactions. It's natural. There is actually no way to reduce gas fees on a permanent scale other than subsidies paid for by the gas chain. This has been attempted many, many times. And today I'm offering you a different solution. I'm offering you a way to manage resources on a blockchain without losing tokens, but still be able to manage resources. So let's just go into why gas fees exist. Quickly, gas fees have always existed on blockchains as a way to stop people from spamming the blockchain. I don't want you to perform unlimited number of transactions because everyone should be able to transact on a blockchain to some level, to some degree, and therefore I'm going to introduce some management controls, some ways to manage resources, and that's a gas fee. But there are ways to manage resources without paying tokens. And today I'm going to give you examples between a gas system and a non-gas system. And we're going to run through a transaction briefly and give you some disadvantages and advantages to each of them. All right, let's get right to it. How the Coins blockchain offers free transactions. Now, I use the word free in quotation marks here primarily because nothing is free. There's always a thing behind it. I'm going to exactly tell you what that thing is. What does a free really mean? And I'm going to do that by giving you an example transaction on the blockchain that has a gas fee and the blockchain that doesn't have a gas fee, aka Coinos. So first on the left here, we've got some coins in your Coinos wallet, and you immediately notice that it has something called the lock state and the unlock state. More on that in a second. But on the right-hand side here, we have your tokens on Solana. I'm using Solana as an example, but you can really use any blockchain that has a gas fee, such as Ethereum, AVAX, Polygon, you name it, they all have gas fees. And so for this particular example, I'm just going to use Solana. So you've got some Solana in your Sol wallet and you've got some coin in your Coinos wallet. All right, so what happens when you run a transaction on Solana versus Coinos, or really any gas chain versus a non-gas chain? In this particular example, you've got a Solana transaction, you want to push it through. What do you have to do to get that transaction to actually successfully complete? Well, you've got to send some Solana tokens with that transaction. And what happens to that Solana token is that it is used to pay the fee with the token. And over time, you're going to pay more tokens. You're going to have to get more tokens and continue paying this gas fee. That's the basis for every single gas chain out there. Not hard to understand. All right, so now on the left side here, we've got coin tokens in your Coinos wallet. And you've noticed that I've got unlocked and lock state. And you already know where this is going. When you perform a Coinos transaction, instead of your tokens being transferred along with the transaction payload, you're going to end up having some of your coin tokens getting locked in your own wallet, which basically means that you can't do much with it until it unlocks. It stays there. It's almost like it's bonded to your wallet. It's staked to your wallet. There's a lot of phrases you can use. Now, you're going to notice that this is very similar to a lot of other blockchains that have this thing called stake to use or stake to play. And what that means is that those wallets, they require you to do something with your liquid assets before you can use the blockchain. Now, we know that that works, but it's a very cumbersome situation, and those blockchains, they're just not very good for user experience. In this particular example, the moment you get your tokens, the moment they sit in your wallet, they're in this unlock state, and you can go and perform a transaction just like a gas chain. You can go ahead and perform any transaction you want. The only difference is that these tokens automatically become locked in your own wallet. They never actually leave your wallet. And slowly over time, these coin tokens, they end up back in the unlocked state. Now, notice that you still have to have coins in order to perform transactions in this particular model. It's not as though you have unlimited resources, because if you perform as many transactions as you have coin, imagine all of these guys end up on the lock side, you're still not going to be able to perform any transactions. Now, I do understand there's people out there who say, well, you can't perform transactions, so it's no better than having a gas system. Well, that's where I say, hey, hold on, buddy. There actually is a difference, because at the end of the day, what happens? After many transactions in Solana, you end up with some dust. You have to go spend more money in order to continue transacting. But after many transactions on Coinos, you just go from a lock state to the unlock state. You don't actually lose any value. And that's what we mean by free. You're not paying anything. You're not losing any actual tokens. That's the important part, because it has a really big difference on the user experience. I guarantee you that if you try out a Coinos application, you launch a token on Coinos, at the end of the day, you're going to end up keeping all your tokens, which is a big difference to what's going on a lot of other blockchains. Now, let's go into some advantages and disadvantages. I'm going to start off with some of the advantages of gas-based systems first, primarily because a lot of people understand gas fees. And I only have two advantages for these guys. The first is that if you're a miner on the blockchain that has a gas fee based system, you're going to earn both the block reward and a gas fee. That's primarily because the gas fees end up being paid towards the miners in order to process them in the highest gas fee order. The second is that gas fees are generally pretty easy to understand. Nobody in the world doesn't understand what fees are. You pay something to gain access to something, and when you don't pay, you don't gain access. And that's the primary thing with gas fees. Very easy for the brain to understand, and miners actually make some money. Now, the advantage of a Coinos resource management system here is that users do not lose the tokens during the transaction process. They end up keeping everything. It's only going between a locked and unlocked state. Next is that users are free to try applications with a significant more amount of freedom. What I mean by that is that if you have gas fees, you end up wondering, should you spend your money on this new application that you've never tried before? Do you really want to spend your gas fee on that? It's going to slow your decision-making process down, but if you're on a system where you're not losing your tokens, you're more likely to just try applications out because it costs you nothing. You're not losing anything in the end. Next up is that users can share their resources with others without penalty. And what I mean by that is that there is no native cost to sharing resources with other people. I'm not going to charge you to share something that's already yours. It's built into the system. Usership is independent of the coin price. This one's important. When the price of a token increases, you see a tendency that people don't use the blockchain because the gas fees become higher and they have more reluctance in spending something because ultimately they want to sell it. If I hold a lot of Solana, I want to eventually sell the Solana to make some money off of it. I'm going to try to not use the blockchain for that reason. And so when the price goes high, you tend to see reduced transactions. At that point, most of the transactions on a gas fee system is being done by whales who can afford the loss in their tokens. But on a Coinos resource management system where the tokens are free and where the transactions are free, you typically see that there is no difference between the number of transactions or the people wanting to transact when the price goes up or down. Next is that users can simply sell their coin at any time to exit. This one's a great one. You can actually sell your tokens because you still have them. Big difference between a gas system and a non-gas system. Lastly is new users can borrow resources without buying anything. What's important here is that this is how new users get involved in the blockchain. They don't have to go through that initial step of buying tokens. They can actually borrow the resource and not have to spend money to try a application. And it's kind of all ties in together. So next up, let's take a look at some of the disadvantages for a gas-based system, and then go ahead and look at the disadvantages of a Coinos resource management system. So with a gas-based system, you see that many of these disadvantages are opposites of the advantages of a Coinos resource management system. Just the way it naturally is because they're opposites and they're trying to solve the problems of another. Here, users need to constantly buy more tokens to pay for gas fees. That's just natural. Eventually, you run out of gas fees. You have to get more tokens to keep on paying the fee, and it's a perpetual spiral into your wallet. Next, users are more hesitant to try applications. Again, if I have to spend money to try an application, I'm going to be a little more hesitant. Is this an application I really want to try? Do I really want to lose my money trying something? That's why they're more hesitant. Whereas if you had a zero fee system, they're probably going to try it anyway because there's nothing to lose. Next is gas fees cannot be paid for by others in a sustainable way. There are blockchains out there that actually subsidize gas fees and they sustain this by printing more tokens. They're diluting the entire supply in order to maintain low gas fees. It's not sustainable this way. There are also gas stations that exist where people donate money to the gas station and it helps pay for gas fees for people who don't have enough money. Again, none of this is sustainable. If we really want to build something sustainable, the only way is to eliminate gas fees. You cannot reduce them because, as I said before, no matter how hard you try to reduce gas fees, the price of the token is going to go up. The transaction volume is going to go up. And that's naturally going to cause prices to increase no matter what. We've seen it on every single blockchain. Every single blockchain that said that we've solved the gas fee problem by reducing it to pennies on the dollar, they eventually will see single digit dollar transaction fees. And if they continue to be more popular, you're going to see double digit, triple digit. And as the price goes up, you're just going to continue to pay for gas fees. They're going to have to find new ways to try to subsidize it, bring it down. It's never going to work. It's always going to default into a higher prices. Lastly, and this is the most important one to me, is that new users must buy the token to try the network. If you want people to try blockchain, if you want it to be more inclusive, if you want to be more accessible to people, you cannot have them go through a very complicated first step. Buying tokens is hard. Next up is the disadvantages to the Koinos system. In this system, you tend to see people have the possibility to hoard tokens. Now, obviously, Koinos is new and the hoarding isn't really there. It's only because it's new and there's not a lot of places to sell it. But as token prices increase, I suspect that people will say, wow, this is like land. If there's only a limited amount of land out there, then I want to buy land because it's going to increase in price every single time. There's more people on Earth, there's more demand for land, and therefore the price of land must always increase. We're talking about real land here on Earth. It's going to lead to the hoarding of tokens, and the token price is always going to increase because the resources are only finite. Now, obviously, this doesn't have to be true because over time, the actual resources will expand, the efficiency of the network will expand, and you're not going to see hoarding of tokens as greatly, but you still may see token price increase because people want a slice of that resource. Whether or not you call that a disadvantage or not, it depends. If you're trying to get involved in the system, then it might be a disadvantage. Next up is miners only earn block rewards. This can be a pro or con depending on where you look at it. I personally call it a disadvantage for the miner because obviously they want to earn the most amount of tokens, but it can also be an advantage, and I'll tell you why. When it comes to gas fees, imagine a system where the miners are able to vote for proposal upgrades to the system. And the miners say, well, we're not going to vote for it. And that's because we want to keep our gas fees. We're getting paid all this extra money. There's no way I'm going to vote for any proposal where I make less money. And that's what kind of happened with Ethereum between the 1.0 and 2.0. If you remove gas fees entirely, then miners only earn block rewards. And if they only earn block rewards, they remove a lot of the political processes that may impact the decision to reduce gas fees. So just be aware there. It can be a disadvantage and an advantage depending on which side you're coming from. Next, more complexity with the resource management for users. This one's interesting because if you design applications on a gas-based system, you don't care how your users pay for gas fees because it's built in the system. They have to get the token. There's nothing you could do about it. As a dApp developer, I'm not going to find ways to pay for my users' gas fees. They decided to use a decentralized application. They decided to get involved in blockchain. They got to go get the token. But in a free to use system, I have to be careful on how I pay for my users' resources. And when I say pay, I mean pay the resource management. So I, as a dApp developer on Coinos, may decide that I'm going to hold 10,000 coin in my wallet, and I'm going to deal with all the unlocking and unlocking, which is automatic on the blockchain, but I'm going to manage that and help users gain access to my applications because I want them to have a good time, and therefore I'm going to deal with that complexity. And so this is something that's harder for things to do, but obviously it's optional. You can still say, I'm going to build an application in Coinos and my users are going to figure out how to get their own coin. All right. And that's really it. Today, we went over some advantages, some disadvantages, and I walked you through a transaction for both a gas-based chain and also on Coinos, the free to use blockchain using their Coinos resource management system. There's a name for all this. It's actually called Mana, but you really don't have to know this name. It's just what we call it internally. At the end of the day, it's a locking and unlocking situation in your wallet. You never lose your tokens and you always have access to them. You can sell them to exit the system, and you always have the same amount of tokens whenever you perform a transaction. So that's it for today. Enjoy.